Hello, and welcome back. In this video, I'll show you everything you need to know to begin squad leading in Bellum. Every squad leader has their own style, so this video isn't going to tell you exactly how to do every single thing, but what I will do is show you everything that I think is a mandatory function of a squad leader, meaning all the things that I find necessary to set your squad up for success and win matches. This video will only briefly touch on platoon level coordination, which we can cover in a later video. This will more so cover how to be a good leader for your squad. I'll break squad leading down into 3 phases and give you a step-by-step guide you can follow. That way you can follow these steps to discover, develop, and refine your own style of squad leading. After the 3 phases, I'll go over how to reconstitute your squad, a very important function in Bellum, and then I'll cover a few tips and a few issues you may encounter and how to deal with those. Chapters are marked below, so if you ever need to return to this video, I've made it easier to find what you're looking for. There are some specific details on game mechanics that I am avoiding for now because we don't know how much this game will change throughout the beta and into early access. So if there's anything you still have a question on, just let me know in the comments and I or someone else can respond. And if you're part of the 90% of my viewers who are currently not subscribed to my channel, every sub lets me know that these guys are worth making, so please consider subscribing. Alright, let's dive right in. Squad leading in Bellum can be broken down into 3 phases: the staging phase, the movement phase, and the combat phase. No matter what game type you're playing, you'll always start a fresh game in phase 1 and move to phases 2 and 3, and then you'll cycle between phases 2 and 3 for the rest of the match. So let's start from the top. When a new round begins and you choose the squad leader role, you'll see your squad start to fill up, and when you deploy, you'll start to hear other leaders discussing strategy, hopefully sooner rather than later. You are in the planning phase right now, and you'll want to collaborate with the rest of the platoon to make a game plan. Before you let the staging phase fly by and start sprinting into the AO following some mark on the map, you'll want to follow these 5 steps. First, when you load into a new match, you want to assess the mission. Ask yourself some questions. What is the game type? What faction am I? Who are my enemies? What goal do I need to accomplish? And what roles are in my squad? Remember that if you miss the intro instructions on screen that tell you what game type you're playing, you can open up your BTAC and look at the top right of the screen. If you see something here that says caches destroyed, then you are playing exploitation. And if not, you're playing attrition. If you're playing exploitation, that means one of the factions in the game is Al-Zalam. And if you're playing attrition, the 2 factions are only Rangers and Satyr. So assess, am I playing attrition? If so, you need to find the enemy and destroy them. Or am I playing exploitation? If so, you need to find the caches and destroy them. Or you need to place the caches and defend them. So think about the game type and who your enemy is. Does the enemy faction have some benefit you need to worry about? Suppressed guns and gun teams, perhaps? A ton of grenade launchers maybe? RPGs and faster movement speed? Now consider what you have at your disposal. What roles are in your squad? Do you have 2 fire teams or 3? Do you have an RPG guy in your squad? Sick. Do you have a bunch of grenade launchers? Cool. You get the point. Just keep them in mind and plan to make use of them. Okay, now we've assessed the mission. We know the game type, we know who the enemy faction is, we know who or what we need to destroy, and we know what we've got. Step 2 will be to read the map. Open your map and take a look at the AO and the area just surrounding it. Where are you coming from? Where do you want to go? Where is the enemy probably starting from, and where would they hide or place caches if it's exploitation? Are there a ton of tree lines in this AO? Or are there a lot of wide open fields? Or both? Try to get a feel for the terrain and think about what it will be like to move through it. This is so important because battles are won and lost based on terrain, and you have to learn to use terrain to your advantage when fighting the enemy. This will get easier in a short while when they release topographic maps. So read the map and get a feel for the AO. And I don't want to overcomplicate things here, but just in case this is helpful for you, you can use the military acronym METTC for steps 1 and 2. You assess the mission, you know your enemy, you've taken a look at the terrain, you know your troops and equipment, there are time considerations, you can think about maybe influence generation and how long you'll have to destroy caches or manpower concerns, and we can disregard C here because we do not need to worry about civil concerns here in Bellum. Okay, now on to step 3. Step 3 is to make a plan. Like I said, you'll jump into a new match and people will start discussing strategy in the staging phase. If you're relatively new to the game or squad leading and someone else begins to take charge of the overall strategy, it's fine if you want to let them make the decisions and just go along with it. Otherwise, get get involved and start discussing a strategy, at least for the initial positions everybody will be moving to. Even if you let others take the lead in designing your platoon strategy, make sure to speak up and let everybody know what your squad will be doing. If the whole platoon is going to move in some general direction, you can tell them you'll cover the west side or the rear, whatever you decide. Or if you have a very involved platoon leader who's charting the course for the whole platoon, and he says he wants someone to take a certain position, you can jump in to let him know your squad will do it. The goal here is to form a plan for where the platoon is heading and who will take what different positions. Obviously, if you're Al-Zalam, this will also include cache placements. And if you're playing with a bunch of randos, it's fine if you just develop the contours of a plan and take it from there. However, if you are in the staging phase and you don't hear any of the other leaders talking, go ahead and speak up. Just say something like, "Alright guys, what's the plan?" And almost always people will start yapping. Sometimes this planning phase will be super efficient, and sometimes it will be haphazard. Just roll with it. Now, once the plan is made, think about how to get your squad from point A to point B. I usually draw it out on the map with arrows to make it as easy as possible for my squad. Don't hesitate to confer with your fire team leaders, or really anyone in your squad, to see what they think about your plan or if they have any better ideas. Once this is done, you need to convey the plan to your whole squad. In squad comms, you should tell everyone the plan the platoon is following and your squad's role in that plan. And you should tell them that to start, we'll be heading to whatever point on the map. If there's not already a mark on the map for where you're headed, put one down now. Let them know the plan and ask them if they have any questions. And don't forget to include your squad's ROE, the rules of engagement. Basically what you're doing here is you're telling the squad when they are authorized to pull the trigger. If they spot an enemy 300 meters out in the distance in front of you, should they just yell "contact front" and start firing? Probably not, so give them a plan. You could say something like, "Don't fire unless fired upon," or "Don't fire unless the enemy has definitely spotted us." So tell them to call out contact and wait for a command unless certain conditions are met. Now your last step here is to initiate movement. Tell your squad, "Alright, let's roll out," and start to move. Feel free to tell everyone to sprint to some safe spot first before they actually form up with their fire teams. Speed is important at the beginning of a match, and you're not going to take contact in the first few minutes of a game. But from here, phase 1 is done, and for the rest of the game your squad is in the fight, and you need to be supervising, refining, and executing. Watch over your squad and make sure they're following the plan. If something is going wrong, like a fire team is in the wrong position, correct them, and execute the mission without stalling. Here's a quick edit with a few examples of what it will sound like as a squad leader in PlatoonNet during the staging phase.
What's going on, fellas? This is 1-1. My plan is to get over to Charlie 46 and then start moving east.
There's no Charlie 67. This is a tragedy.
I got no one in my squad at the moment, but as soon as I get
people dying over there?
All stations, this is 6.
Oh,
just joined up, so no one's on it.
I'm dying! I'm dying!
Alright, gotcha. Teabag this man.
I'm healing you up. I'm healing you up. Don't worry, buddy.
Bravo 6-8, and then try and get towards Suicide Forest.
Where is my spot? Where is my spot?
He's probably just waiting for the gap between these two.
Yeah, hi FTO.
Now let's move on to phase 2, the movement phase. This takes place immediately after the staging phase, but will also happen anytime you're not actively in combat throughout the match. In this phase, you want to focus on your units as fire teams. Although Al-Zalam has 3 fire teams, I'm going to stick with the conventional makeup right now and just talk about Alpha and Bravo to make things simpler. Alpha fire team is typically your assaulting element, and Bravo is the support element. However, don't ever make this a rule that can't be broken, and I'll talk more about this in phase 3. So think about your squad as 2 teams who are working together to achieve a goal and moving toward the objective. When moving, you'll want to keep them a little spread out. Spacing is important within individual fire teams because multiple people should never die from the same grenade, for example. But spacing your fire teams out is also important because the more ground you cover, the more security you have. So to start off a match, I'll usually put my Alpha fire team up front leading the way and tell my Bravo fire team to follow maybe 50 to 100 meters behind. If you want your fire teams or your whole squad to take up some formation, you should tell them that. Just make sure if you are using formations, they aren't following the US military doctrine that puts team leaders up front, because in Bellum, team leaders act as spawn points, so they should avoid being at the front of a formation. So when moving from point A to point B, you want to ensure your fire teams are somewhat spread out depending on the circumstances, and you want them to maintain situational awareness. You can help them with this by saying something like, we expect the enemy to be in this general direction, Squad 1-2 will be covering our west side, and Squad 1-3 has rear security. Now your guys know what direction they should be looking and what side of your squad is not covered by friendly forces. You don't want your guys to have to pull out their map too much. When moving or just getting into a good position, you also always want to make sure you maintain rear security, whether that's another squad behind you or just someone in your squad who keeps an eye to the back. You'll also want to monitor your squad's speed while moving. If they're moving too slow, tell them to pick up the pace, but they can also be moving too fast. If you're deep into the AO and your guys are moving too fast, they're paying less attention to what's around them. It's fine to tell them they need to slow it down a bit. Part of your job throughout the movement phase will be to balance this between speed and security. The higher your squad speed, the less security you have, but the more security you have, the slower you'll be moving. You yourself can choose to stick with the Alpha Fire team or the Bravo Fire team depending on the circumstances. I usually move between them throughout a match. Your goal should be to get into a good position to either watch over an area or hold security for another squad, or take a look some way before you start moving again. And if you're playing as Al-Zalam, it's no problem for you to get your guys set up in great positions to ambush the enemy in the movement phase. Don't think that the movement phase needs to be continuous, non-stop movement. It can be digging into defensive positions to ambush enemies. Now eventually, one of two things are going to happen. You will engage enemies or take fire yourself. What happens will depend on your squad's awareness, so keep in mind what I just said earlier. If you're moving very fast, your squad will spend less time looking around. Mainly because seeing people at a distance in this game is often based on sitting still for a second, using the shift zoom function, and looking for moving pixels. In any event, let me quickly go over the transition to the next phase. Let's say your squad is moving through a tree line slowly because you're close to the center of the AO, and you suddenly notice an enemy squad in the distance. You need to be the decision maker here on how you're going to act. You want to be analytical, but you also must be decisive. Look around and do a quick assessment. How many enemies do you see? Just a fire team? Is there probably a whole squad? Is there more than a squad? And then look at the terrain. Who has the high ground? Is there any route to maneuver onto the enemy position? If you start engaging and need to break contact, do you have a way out? And then make a decision on whether you can take these guys or not. Don't take too long here. The worst thing you could do is make your guys wait for 2 minutes while they have their sights on the enemies, and then the enemies see you and start shooting first. That could give the enemy fire superiority over you. If you're brand new to this, don't feel bad to ask your team for advice on the best approach. And if you're waiting too long, just act. Either assault the enemy, or hold your position if you've got a great spot, or find some route to move. In my opinion, it's better for you to command your squad to make an assault and then fail, than to sit there and let the enemy dictate the fight. At least you acted and you can learn from the mistakes you made. Any indecision here risks your squad's lives, so quickly analyze and decide. A decent decision made right now is better than a perfect decision made 2 minutes from now. Okay, and if this is not the way it goes, you will eventually take contact. If the enemy sees you before you see them, ideally you'll want your alpha element to be the one that takes contact first, because your Bravo guys have more firepower. In any event, congratulations, you've taken contact. You're in the shit, and it's time to climb your way out of it. Welcome to Phase 3. I'm not going to get into small unit tactics here because that is a long video, but I will give you some basics on how to control a fight. A lot of the way a fight pans out is going to depend on your squad's level of experience. But what you can do as a squad leader is make sure they are in the right place at the right time. When taking contact, the first thing you need to do is quickly assess where the fire is coming from. So let's say the enemies fired at you first. Can you see the enemies? Can you hear them? Did someone call out their position? If you've got nothing, ask your squad. In squad comm, say, who has eyes on the enemy and where are they? Once you figure it out, you'll usually want to make sure your squad is returning fire. Hopefully they've done this already themselves. It's very important that you don't let the enemy get fire superiority, so supervise your squad here and refine if needed. If you don't hear them shooting, tell them to return fire. Next, you want to make sure your squad is in cover or concealment. Is your alpha fire team under fire and they're standing out in the open? moving, tell them to get into cover. If they can't move, tell Bravo they need to increase their rate of fire on the enemy to cover Alpha. And the next thing you want to do is report the contact. Say something like, net call, this is 1-1, we are taking contact from our northwest 100 meters, or whatever it is. Include any additional information you can, such as they're in the next tree line, or they're in the village, or anything that's helpful to your platoon. Now it's time for you to get creative. If you sit there and you say absolutely nothing, oftentimes your Alpha and Bravo fire teams will stay in the exact same positions and hide and try to return fire until you give them a command. So think about how you can win a fight against this enemy. We can think about getting help from your platoon later, but for right now, focus on your squad and imagine you have to take these guys one-on-one. As I said earlier, this is going to depend a lot on the terrain. Can your squad see the enemy? Can they maneuver on them? If the answer is no, you may want to break contact, move to another location, and re-engage. You don't want to be breaking contact all the time the way that a lot of new squad leaders do, but you should never feel bad about having to break contact. You are saving precious lives if you were never going to win that fight. But assuming you can take the fight, think of your squad as two teams like I said earlier, and let's say it was Alpha that took contact first. You could, for example, tell your Bravo fire team, Bravo, I need you suppressing these targets for Alpha to maneuver, and if Bravo can successfully suppress the enemy's rate of fire will go down. Just try to keep your guys firing and maneuvering. Now, I mentioned this earlier, but things are not always going to go as planned. If your Bravo element takes fire first, just swap your fire teams in your mind. Don't ever think that Alpha must always be the assaulting squad and Bravo is only the suppressing squad. If Bravo's in a better position to assault the enemy, then Bravo should be assaulting. Now, if you need a lot of help for the combat phase, look up small unit tactics for help on how to win firefights. It's hard to give specifics here on tactics because it all depends on your faction, the terrain you're in, the game type, and if it's exploitation, whether you are attacking or defending. But generally, if you're gonna attack the enemy, you want to do one of two things. You either want to use one fire team as a base of fire while the other fire team assaults from a good position, or you want to leapfrog your squad to the enemy position to make a full-on assault. These are just two very basic ways of thinking about how to win a firefight. Unless the enemies are out in the open and easy to shoot from a distance, you should think of your goal as getting your team into grenade throwing range of the enemy. And at that point, you're going to mostly be relying on their individual skills to win the battle. But if you can accomplish this, you've done an excellent job as squad leader. In the first case, one fire team should be providing continuous fire on an enemy position while the other fire team gains a new angle of attack. In the second case, you're essentially bounding your fire teams to the objective. Just make sure you're throwing out these commands to your fire team leaders so they know exactly what their job is. Let them handle their individual fire teams. And a brief note on that, you don't want to micromanage the individual members of your squad unless your fire team leader is not doing it himself. Fire team leaders are obviously going to have varying levels of experience, so sometimes you do need to jump in, but you want to try not to. So for example, if a grenadier is not putting grenades on the enemy during an assault, tell him to do so. If the automatic rifleman isn't keeping sustained fire on the enemy, let them know. But a good FTL is going to take care of this themselves. So use your brain, make a quick plan, and execute. Now, simultaneously, you need to be thinking about whether you can get help from your platoon or not. Maybe the platoon leader has already taken charge here and ordered another squad to reinforce you. If so, wonderful. If not, call for help if needed. If your squad is completely pinned down to the point that you can't even break contact, find the nearest squad on the map and ask them for help. Be specific. You could say something like, 1-2, this is 1-1 requesting support. We are trying to break contact and move south, but we are pinned down. And if a friendly squad does come to help, you should let your squad know. That way they can adjust for it and know how much risk they can take. Meaning they know if they should just be sprinting away right now, or if they just need to hold out for 2 minutes before a friendly squad will be in a position to assist. It also helps with PID. If your squad knows that a friendly squad is moving in from the west to assist you, they won't freak out and start shooting when that squad comes into view. So we can do an hour-long video on the combat phase, but of course I'm going to have to leave it here, and hopefully this gives you an idea of how to control the battle. Hopefully you've won your firefight. If not, and no aid is coming for you, you're back to the redeploy screen and starting back in phase 2. If you have won the firefight though, you should also consider yourself as moving back into phase 2. Do not stick around all these dead enemies that you just defeated, because the entire enemy platoon knows that they just died there and they will come looking for you. Hey, maybe you want to move your squad into a position to ambush them when they do. Whatever you decide. You also want to give your guys a moment to regroup. After combat, reconstitute any dead members, which I'll go over in a little bit, and ask your squad how they're doing. Is ammo an issue? Does anyone need any medical attention? Etc. But from here on, you're going to play out the match, cycling through phases 2 and 3 over and over until you've accomplished your goal, whether that's winning on manpower or influence or destroying enemy caches. And remember that if the game type is exploitation and you're fighting against Al-Zalam, they are generating influence the whole time, so you can't just sit in one spot the whole game. So these are the 3 phases of squad leading. Now I'm going to go over a very important function of your role as squad leader in Bellum. Reconstitution. It's easy to get caught up in the moment when you're in combat or in the immediate aftermath, whether you've won a battle or broken contact. What you need to always be keeping in the back of your mind is that you are your squad's spawn point. And if you're the conventional forces, the fire team leader as well. But 2 conditions must be satisfied for your squad to redeploy on you. You must be close to a squad member, and you must not be in contact. The game clearly detects the proximity of the nearest squad member, so the first one's an easy one. But there's also a mechanic that is detecting whether you're in contact or not. So when you're actively fighting, it's unlikely that you'll be able to get your dead squad members back into the fight unless you and at least one other person distance yourself enough from the enemy and stop taking fire. Use this function as needed to try to get your squad members back in the fight when you've had a mass casualty incident. And keep this in mind when you have any squad members full dead, as they cannot communicate with you and may be sitting at the redeploy screen, frustrated because their only available option is the fob because you do not have a squad member next to you. When you're trying to reconstitute and you need a squad member nearby, it's best to have someone come to you in a safe location to get your guys back in, rather than running to a squad member who might be engaging the enemy. You do not want to risk getting downed at this point, otherwise you're risking your entire squad making the long walk in from the fob again. Now I'll go over some tips and tricks and then some common issues you may encounter. Number 1, learn how to use C4. As a squad leader, you do have C4 in your kit. If you're playing exploitation, then remember that caches can only be destroyed with C4 or rockets. Whoever can get to the cache and do the job should blow the thing up. But sometimes you may be the best person to do it. My advice here is simple. You don't want to have performance anxiety when the time comes. So hop into the training server and play around with the C4 to figure out exactly how it works before it comes time to use it in a game. It's not hard at all to use, but if the first time you're going to use it is in game when you're under fire trying to destroy a cache, you could miss a step and mess it up. Number 2, quit playing around on your phone.
But you playing on your phone?
No, I'm not playing on my phone. I'm taking care of business.
You need to have a very strong awareness of your position on the map and the surrounding area, but you cannot be an iPad kid and spend your time glued to your phone. Use the map when needed, place marks for your team, but don't spend too much time staring at the map. If you played a full game and you felt that you were staring at your map for most of it, make a concerted effort to spend less time doing so in the next game. Let 1-6 play the chess game on the map. Don't try to take on that burden yourself. It's better to be an active participant in what your squad is doing. This one will be a lot harder when you're just beginning because it will take some time to learn the maps. But you will be surprised how quickly you start to remember certain areas of the map and they'll all build on each other. Eventually, you'll start recognizing where you are and what's around you, and you won't have to look at your map as much, except to reference things like where your friendly squads are. Okay, as Al-Zalam, do not get caught placing caches. When you start a match as Al-Zalam, you may be one of the squad leaders placing a cache. Remember that the enemies are going to put drones up into the sky. So when you're going somewhere to place a cache, there may be a drone looking for you, but that's okay. What you can do is make sure that you don't run through open fields to place a cache, because you'll become an easy easy target for the drone to spot, and then they can follow you. And when placing the cache, don't have your entire squad crowd around you. For example, the first times I ever placed a cache, I remember my entire squad crowding around me in the school or once in a hut. When the enemy drone operator sees this, he's going to know there's a reason an entire squad is stopping and crowding in one place. And then they're going to mark it on their map, and they're going to know exactly where your cache was placed from the very beginning of the game. Make it hard for the enemies to find your cache by making it hard for the enemy drone operator to find you in the beginning of a round. Stay concealed and don't bunch up. And I want to thank our master of drones, Peanut, here for pointing this out in the Discord. Okay, you should also learn platoon net etiquette. Being on platoon net for the first time can be intimidating. You want to make sure you are reporting things to the platoon while not causing platoon net traffic congestion. My advice here is to maybe play some rounds as fire team leader, so you don't have to do as much talking and you can listen to how other squad leaders communicate with each other. But if you need more help here and you're just not familiar with platoon net etiquette, check out my video called How to Communicate with Confidence, and I guarantee you it'll help. Number 5, stay alive. I know I already covered Reconstitution, but it's extremely important that you stay alive in Bellum because, as I said, as a squad leader, you are a spawn point. If things go badly and you stay alive, you can pretty quickly break contact and reconstitute and get your squad back into the fight. Don't do things like risking your life to go out into an open field to provide medical for a down teammate, even if it looks like the coast is clear. Delegate the task out. And when giving orders to your squad, you want to communicate intent. You'll see the problem here with newer squad leaders, especially when they're giving orders for movement. They'll say, "We're moving to the top of that hill on this mark," and that's it. Instead, tell your squad what the whole point is. Like, we're moving to the top of the hill on Juliet 9-3 to watch the river crossing to our east, or we're moving to this mark on the map to reinforce Squad 1-2, who just took contact to their west. Whatever it is, you're basically giving an early indication to your squad of what their job is. Okay, I know this probably sounds stupid, but unless you're being super competitive about this game, remember that as a squad leader, you're also essentially curating an hour-long experience for a bunch of people. By being a good leader and making the experience enjoyable, you might be surprised how much more your squad will communicate. Start communicating with your squad early on in the game, especially when running into the AO. Make it fun for everyone, start the game off right, make small talk, crack a joke, whatever, and you'll usually see that the quieter types of people in your squad are a lot less stressed out during the game and a lot more willing to communicate throughout the match. And everyone will just have a generally better time in game. And lastly, don't get burnt out. It takes a lot more brain usage to squad lead than to be an automatic rifleman. And the matches are long, so even 2 matches back to back can feel like a lot. If you want to start stepping into leadership roles, just make sure you don't get burnt out and stop enjoying the game. Make sure you're still having fun and switch it up every once in a while, especially after a bad game. Go run wild with a 240 for a game or whatever's fun for you. Just don't let yourself get burnt out from squad leading. Okay, now let me go over some of the common issues you may encounter. Some of these are specific to the beta as the game exists right now, so there are some things here that I hope will not be as relevant in the distant future. First off, you might be in a game with no platoon leader, no 1-6. If you're in a game and nobody's feeling like taking the 1-6 role, it may cause you some problems, but they're not insurmountable. The 1-6 role is the platoon leader, and that's the main person when it comes to platoon level coordination. Early on in the alpha testing phase of this game, there wasn't even a 1-6 role, so a lot of us got used to squad leaders being the main source of coordination, so I know that it is possible. If you don't have a 1-6, just up your game when it comes to communicating with other squad leaders. Be more willing to ask for help when you need it, and be more willing to offer help to other squads and assist them when they need help. The real problem you will have is the absence of a PB or patrol base, which is an additional spawn point outside of the AO that can be placed by 1-6. So you will only have the fob as the spawn point if your whole squad gets wiped. So if you have no 1-6, keep that in the back of your mind. Now, next up, you might not have a platoon sergeant. This one may actually cause you more of a problem because of resupply issues. 1-7 has the ORP, the Objective Rally Point, which can resupply your squad. At this point in the game's development, the ORP is the only thing we have besides the fob as a resupply point. It's not much of an issue if you don't have the additional hands on deck from 1-7 for coordination purposes, but it can be tough if your squad is running low on ammo. So adapt to the situation ahead of time by checking and making sure you do have a 1-7 at some point during the game. If you do not, tell your squad that they need to be more conservative on ammo than usual. And if you think your squad is spending too much ammo during any given situation, tell them they need to turn it down a notch. you will occasionally come across a squad member without a mic or just not listening. The issue is really not that serious. It happens occasionally, it's really not that common. If you have a squad member who does not respond to any orders, doesn't stick with the team, doesn't say a word, I usually give the guy a second and maybe even a third chance. Depending on your level of patience, you could say, you know, hey, we really need you to stick with our squad. If it comes down to it though, and the guy is just running into ODAs, jeopardizing your team's strategy, go ahead and give him the boot. Open the team roster, right-click on his name, initiate the vote kick. Make sure you tell your squad that you are initiating a vote kick and why you are doing so, and that they need to open up their maps and vote yes. If you don't do this, you might not get enough votes, and you'll be stuck with the person. So my advice here is just to give them a chance, but vote kick if needed. And you might get antsy teammates. At times you might find your teammates getting antsy because you're holding security for too long or whatever. This can cause issues. In my opinion, if you're just playing in pub matches, nobody wants to sit in a bush for 30 minutes anyway, so I do try to avoid letting that happen. If the platoon really wants your squad in a certain position, and you're spending an entire game not doing a thing, continue to work with your platoon, like don't go off on a lone wolf squad journey, but tell them you are going to move into a more effective position to help the platoon. But if you've only been somewhere for a few minutes and you've got guys in your squad who just want to hold the W key until they inevitably die and respawn, then do your best to communicate intent, like I said earlier. This will not always work, but it does help to make sure your squad knows why they are where they are and where the enemy may be coming from. Keep them on their toes and make sure they know why they haven't moved in some amount of time. And lastly, sometimes your squad won't be doing too well, or maybe your whole platoon is just a mess. It can make the game a lot less fun. Honestly, when I see morale drop, it's usually because there's one single guy in the squad who's kind of just being a wet blanket. We could be down a whole lot of manpower, but we're holding our own, having some pretty good engagements, fun firefights, but we're still losing, and one guy will go, this whole game sucks, our team sucks, this is a mess, you know, and everybody just starts to feel bad. There's not much you can do here, but like I said earlier, it helps to try to make the game more fun, chit chat, cracking jokes, whatever it takes, you know, it is just a video game. Speaking with your squad more often when times are bad is better than going silent and letting the one guy dictate everyone's experience and make everyone just feel down. I usually just say something like, you know, this game has been a mess and goddamn we are getting stomped, but we have had some good firefights this match. And usually that makes the problem child shut his trap. Just try to keep morale up by making the game fun and not letting the Debbie Downers get to you or your squad. Okay, if you've made it this far, then I guarantee you are more than ready to squad lead in Bellum. We need more people right now who are willing to jump into leadership roles, so if it's something you think you might enjoy, go ahead and give it a try. It's not for everyone, but it's really fun if you like to think about strategy. If you're worried about your ability to communicate on PlatoonNet, go ahead and check out my video called How to Communicate with Confidence. And if you're afraid you don't know all the lingo, check out my other video called The Secret Language of Bellum Explained. Thanks for watching, I really appreciate it. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next time.